So today I'm going to teach you how to build this barbell gun rack. It's a freestanding one, so you don't have to mount it to the wall. And overall project is about 30 bucks in lumber and screws. Took me about 2 hours to do, and the tools I used were a miter saw and a circular saw, and obviously some drills for your screwing. You can definitely get away with a jigsaw for the slots and the angle cuts. I found the circular saw to be a little bit easier, so I'm going to go over the math on how to do this, and then we'll go. All right, so let's go over some basic math on this barbell gun rack. So I have 10 bars, and they all range a little bit different dimensions and thickness. So what I decided, I was going to use any of the thicker ones, 2 1/4 inches, and then for a standard power bar, it's about a 1.5 inch slot that you would need to put on your upright. So I added them all up. And then I decided that I needed to figure out the spacing between the barbells, and I think minimum should be 2 1/4. I wouldn't go any smaller than that because you might run into the barbells, like the collars hitting each other. So that's what I recommend. Added all of those up, and it gave me 65.5 inches. So I decided to make my uprights 72 inches, just to kind of give me some more overhead space, because I have a dip matador, so I was going to put that on top. And the overall design is pretty simple. It's just 2 triangles with support and cross members. That's pretty much it. Standard width of a power rack is 46 to 47 inches depending on the manufacturer, so I decided to make mine 46. And on the support arms on the back of the uprights, I decided I was going to go with 40 inches because you do need some sort of support. You can lean it against the wall, but the purpose of this was to make it freestanding. So, so basically, on your uprights, cut the bottoms at 10 to 15 degrees. I think any more than that, and you're going to start taking up more foot space. And so I decided to save myself some space and cut it at 10 degrees. Which gives me an interesting dilemma with as far as the triangle shape goes, because the support arm now has a 10-degree angle, which is a very difficult cut to make. But I figured that it's going to be fine. I can figure it out with the circular saw, no big deal. So I made mine to go in the middle of the upright, and you can certainly take them all the way to the top. You would have to probably buy an extra 2x4, which is not that big of a deal. But in order to figure out that math, you would have to probably use the law of sines, because you only know one measurement, which would be B. You know, you measure that from there to there on the inside of your upright, and that'll give you the start of your dimensions that you need to figure out. And since I cut 10 degrees off of this, that makes this triangle 80 degrees, 90 degrees, and 10 degrees up top, right? So use the law of sines. You'll know B, so then you can figure out your A and your C as well. If you don't want to do the math, there's plenty of triangle calculators out there online. Just use those. Anyway, so we're going to go ahead and make some cuts and go for it. All right, so let's go over the basic components. I've labeled out here each of the pieces that you're going to need to build this. Pretty simple, not a lot of components. I denoted, so you need 2 uprights cut at 72 inches in length at a 10-degree angle. You can cut that off of this 90 with a miter saw or a circular saw, and that's with a 2x6. And then 2 cross members, each cut at 43 inches in length, and those are with 2x6s. And then 2 supports with 2x4s. I cut mine at 40 inches. You can make yours as long as you want, whatever height you like. So I denoted the 10-degree cut that you're going to make, which is that really long, oblong cut. That would be off of this 90, or you can denote it's an 80-degree cut off of this one. Whichever way you want to look at it, it's still a really long, difficult cut to make. And then you're going to have 2 feet. Mine are at 23 7/8 because that's what's left over off of this 6-foot cut. And those are with 2x6s. And then I pretty much gave you an option for struts, which are the angled braces to make the structure a little bit more stable. Each cut at 45 degrees, and those are 22 inches in length. Kind of gives you a little wiggle room. And pretty much the overall structure, the front face, it's a rectangle with each of the struts in each corner, and then the bottom cross member I put up at 12 inches high because I wanted to put things underneath it. And then the side view, this is pretty much what it looks like. The support arms with the 2x4s, since mine are only 40 inches long, they're going to pretty much be right directly in the center of the uprights. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, so what I've done here is I've actually screwed both of the uprights together. That way, whenever I go to make cuts for the slots, I only have to make one cut versus two on each slot. I've written down all my measurements for the size of the holes and then the space between the holes. I called an audible on a few things, mainly because I decided that the spacing for the Swiss bar didn't need to be 5 inches on top and bottom. So I'm just going to put it in sideways. And what I did is I made a little jig for the depths and the widths for each of the barbell slots, and the 2 1/4 for the fatter ones. You don't have to do that, but it makes it a lot easier for the measurements. And I started from the bottom, that way, you know, if I ran out of space, I could kind of figure out where I wanted to go with it. So there's a multitude of ways you can make these cuts for the slots. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use my circular saw. I've set the depth to where I'm just going to cut straight down, and it's going to hit this line, and then I'm going to finish it off with a jigsaw. You could probably hit them with a jigsaw, even a reciprocating saw, or like an oscillating tool. So that's how I'm going to go about it. So this is one way to go about making these slot cuts. I ran my circular saw through this a couple of times, and really you can just hit it with a hammer, and pretty much a clean line. If it's not, you can go ahead and use a chisel or a screwdriver right on the lines, and it would make a cleaner cut. But yeah, that's one way to do it. Well, there you have it. All the slots are cut. I'm going to unscrew these apart and then put in the cross braces and go from there. Since this is a pretty big and heavy project, I had 4-inch screws already, you know, from leftover projects. So definitely recommend at least 3 inches. But since I had these, you know, it's like $10 a box. So that could up your price on the overall project, but it's definitely what I recommend. So I've cut my 2 support braces at 10 degrees. And the fact that these are pretty close to being the same cut with a circular saw, I'm pretty happy about. It's a tough cut to make. It's a really long angled cut. So yeah, that looks pretty good. So I'm sticking with it. So if you take a look here at the support arm or brace or whatever you want to call it, it's basically lined up almost in the middle of the entire rack. And which is great because a majority of the weight of the barbells are going to be pretty much right here along the center where that brace is. So it's not, I assume it's not going to be top heavy. I guess we will find out when I start loading up this thing with barbells. And as far as the triangle calculation, here's where it's supposed to be. I'm an 1/8 off, which is actually not bad considering the degree of difficulty with the cut. So I'm pretty happy with that. So as far as putting screws in this, you know, the first 3 were pretty good. There's plenty of meat in this front brace. However, like getting towards down the bottom, there's not a lot there. So what I did is I just countersunk with a bigger drill bit, which allows this drill to fit a little bit deeper. There's still meat left in this support, and there's more in this one, so works out for it better. And while I'm here, I'm just going to go ahead and put in my cross braces with that extra 2x4, making sure everything's 90 degrees with my speed square. We're good to go. So as far as freestanding goes, it's pretty stable, a little top heavy. so it tends to want to fall backwards just a touch. I prepared for that, which is why I cut my 2x6s at 6 feet so that I could have a little bit of extra for some stabilization legs on the bottom. So I'm going to attach those, and hopefully that'll fix my problem. So we've got the support legs on, everything's set up. Looks good to go. Now it's just a leap of faith and putting all the barbells on there. Okay, so what I've learned through this is that the 1.5-inch hole spacing for the Duffalo bar doesn't really work if you actually want it to hang down like you see there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify those and make them 2 1/4, and I'm going to hang the SSB there instead. Overall, it's pretty stable. Definitely would recommend making the any sort of fat bar. I would make the hole deeper into the 2x6. I did leave it freestanding to show that it is stable and it works pretty well. So I'm pretty happy with it.